Have you ever stopped to think about how small things can change the course of your life? I'm not talking about big decisions, like moving to a new city or starting a new job. I'm talking about little things, the ones you think don't matter, until they become the only thing that does. I'll never forget one of those little things. A simple rule, seemingly harmless. The rule of room 108. My school was old, full of dusty hallways and moldy furniture. Something about it gave me chills, maybe the musty smell of the walls or the sound of wooden floors creaking. But there was something even stranger. Room 108. I'd heard rumors about it. Some said it was locked. Others claimed no one ever left. But the mystery grew, until one night after the last class, something made me stop. I saw a boy, pale, standing in front of room 108. His eyes were wide, like he was in shock. Curiosity led me to him. "Did you read the rules?" he asked, his voice trembling. Confused, I asked, "What rules?" He stared at me, eyes so wide, it seemed his soul was about to leave. "The rules of room 108. You have to follow them all, or you'll never leave." I thought he was joking, but something in his expression unsettled me. Before I could ask more, he ran off, as if he were fleeing from something. At that moment, I noticed the door to room 108 was slightly ajar. I should have ignored it. I should have walked away. But something inside me, a voice, made me walk toward the door. The room was empty, except for a piece of paper on the teacher's desk. I picked it up, and my heart stopped when I saw what was written. In big letters it said, "Rule number 1, never enter alone." Confused, I looked around, trying to understand. But before I could process, the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. Fear overwhelmed me, and then I saw him. The boy. He was standing in the doorway, now with completely white eyes, as if his soul had been drained. The feeling of being watched was intense. I began reading the other rules written on the paper, each one more disturbing than the last. Rules of room 108. Rule number 1. Never enter alone. The room can only be opened with at least 2 people. If you enter alone, you will never be able to leave. Rule number 2. Never look at the door while inside. Looking at the door while inside room 108 makes you become part of what's in there. Those who look never leave the same. Rule number 3. Always leave the door ajar when you leave. When leaving the room, you must leave the door slightly open. Closing it completely has irreversible consequences. Rule number 4. Never talk about what happens inside the room. Talking about what you saw or experienced in the room makes the room seek you out. Those who talk never leave the school. Rule number 5. Never ignore the whisper coming from the wall. If you hear a whisper from the wall, you must respond quietly. Ignoring or not understanding what is said can cause the room to respond in an unwanted way. Rule number 6. No one can enter after midnight. After midnight, no one should enter or attempt to open the room. The room changes after this hour, and those who enter are never seen again. Rule number 7. Never touch the chalkboard. The chalkboard, even if unused, must be left untouched. Touching it activates a mechanism that locks the room forever. Rule number 8. Never take anything from the room. If you take something from the room, you're taking a piece of it with you. These items must never be brought into the outside world. Rule number 9. Only those with permission can leave. Some say the room chooses who can leave. Don't try to escape without something inside giving you permission. If you try, you'll lose your way back. Rule number 10. Leave a message for the next person. Before leaving the room, write a message for whoever comes after you. It doesn't matter what you write, but if you don't leave a message, something worse may happen. I was terrified. Each of these rules seemed to carry more weight as I read them. But the most disturbing part was hidden at the bottom of the paper, in fine print, written in fresh red ink, as if it had just been written there. If you've reached the last rule, you're already trapped. The sound of my breath grew louder, and the fear intensified. The room seemed to close in on me. I looked at the boy, now closer. His eyes were completely white, and he smiled, but it wasn't a human smile. It was twisted, grotesque. "You're not leaving," he whispered. I tried to run, but my legs were heavy, as if the air had become too thick to move. The room was distorting. The chalkboard started to glow unnaturally, and a massive shadow loomed behind me. The last thing I heard before everything went dark was a laugh. That wasn't mine. I don't know what happened after that. I know what the room did to me. And I know that now. Something much worse awaits me. Room 108 never lets anyone leave. Now, I'm part of it. And when you come, if you follow the rules, it might already be too late.